Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you on a journey, one that begins quietly, almost invisibly, inside the heart of a woman when she steps into marriage. She steps in with hope, with dreams, with visions of forever, hand in hand, soul to soul. In those early days, connection feels effortless. Endless conversations, playful laughter, small gestures that carry enormous meaning. She feels alive, seen, adored. But here's the truth no one wants to admit: over time, life dulls even the brightest spark. Responsibilities pile up. Bills, children, work stress. Routines take the place of spontaneity, and what once felt electric slowly fades into background noise. At first, the change is so subtle, she barely notices. But eventually, that spark, that effortless intimacy, becomes a faint ache. Now here's the suspenseful part: that emptiness is not born of hatred, not even neglect in the way we normally think. No. It's born of something far more dangerous: complacency. You see, many husbands fall into a silent trap. They think, I provide. I work hard. I keep things stable. That's enough. But for a woman, emotional connection is not a luxury. It's oxygen. And when the supply of oxygen starts to thin even slightly, she begins to suffocate in ways that aren't visible to the eye. Because a woman who feels unseen is like fertile ground waiting for seeds to be planted. A kind word from a coworker. A simple compliment from a stranger. A thoughtful gesture from a friend. Things her husband once gave freely, but no longer does. It's like water dripping on stone. The attention feels like sips of cold water to someone who has been unknowingly dehydrated for years. This is the danger: emotional hunger works silently. It doesn't announce itself with flashing lights. It whispers. It nudges. It bends her thoughts in directions she never intended to go. She may begin to look forward to certain conversations a little too much. She may linger on a text, replay a compliment in her mind, or find herself smiling at a memory of someone else while sitting right next to her husband. Because attention, my friends, is addictive. And once she tastes it again, especially when it feels genuine, personal, alive, ignoring it becomes nearly impossible. It doesn't take grand gestures. It could be as small as someone noticing her new haircut, asking about her day with real interest, or remembering something she mentioned weeks ago. These little things become enormous in contrast to the silence she feels at home. And here lies the suspense: every small act of attention pulls her further into comparison. The man who notices versus the man who doesn't. Her marriage still functions. The lights are on. The duties are done. But emotionally, it feels like living in a house where no one truly resides. It's not warmth. It's not fire. It's cold survival. And when another source of warmth appears, she doesn't go seeking him, she drifts toward him. Not because she wants to leave her husband, but because she wants to feel alive again. This is how married women become unsuspecting prey. Not because they are unfaithful by nature. Not because they go hunting for affairs. But because their emotional starvation makes outside attention feel irresistible. Now, let's go deeper. Marriage in its early stage feels like an adventure. Every glance is thrilling. Every kiss carries a spark. Every conversation feels like uncovering a new secret. But slowly, inevitably, novelty fades. And human beings, by design, crave novelty. We are wired to seek newness, stimulation, variety. When life becomes too predictable, the spark of passion weakens. This boredom doesn't arrive with fireworks. It sneaks in silently. She doesn't wake up one day thinking, I'm bored. Instead, she finds herself scrolling her phone endlessly, daydreaming of what-if scenarios, or laughing harder at jokes from someone outside her marriage than she does at home. That's why a casual conversation with someone new feels thrilling. Because against the backdrop of endless sameness, even the smallest surprise shines bright. And here's the suspense: once boredom plants its roots, it magnifies flaws. What she once admired in her husband becomes background noise, and what annoys her becomes amplified. She remembers the man who once surprised her with flowers, who once made her laugh until she cried. And she compares him to the man who now scrolls through his phone at dinner. Because now, when someone else enters her world and offers even a spark of novelty, a spontaneous compliment, a different perspective, a simple but fresh energy, it feels intoxicating. None of this is deliberate. It's instinctive. It's the response of a heart craving to feel something different. And here's the chilling truth: most emotional affairs don't begin with intent. They don't start with seduction. They start with laughter. With shared frustrations. With, "You understand me." At first, it's nothing but innocent companionship. That's what makes it so dangerous. Because innocence is the perfect disguise. Slowly, she begins turning to this person for comfort she should be seeking at home. When she's had a bad day, he's the one she thinks of. When something exciting happens, he's the first person she wants to tell. And once she begins confiding, sharing her frustrations, her disappointments, her dreams, that's when her emotional loyalty begins to shift. Here's the haunting reality: intimacy is not just physical. It's emotional. And once she gives her emotional self to someone else, the line has already been crossed, even if she doesn't admit it. She hides the frequency of their conversations. Secrecy creates thrill. And thrill fuels addiction. Worse still, this outside connection exists in a bubble, free from the demands of real life. No bills. No chores. No arguments about laundry or parenting. It is untouched, idealized, intoxicating. And against the grind of everyday marriage, it feels magical. Until one day, she realizes, she is more emotionally tied to someone outside her marriage than to the man she vowed forever to. And here's the unsettling truth: emotional affairs often feel more powerful than physical ones. They burrow deeper, intertwining hearts and minds in ways that are nearly impossible to untangle. The greatest deception of all is the illusion of safety. Married women often believe the ring protects them. The vows. The years of history. They think, "I'm married. It could never happen to me." Because when she feels safe, she stops watching the boundaries. She answers that message. She lingers in that conversation. She laughs a little longer than she should. And because she still identifies herself as loyal, she never questions the drift. But safety, when taken for granted, is the very thing that exposes her to danger. Marriage is not an invisible shield. In fact, sometimes, being married makes her even more intriguing to others. More desirable. Because commitment looks like a challenge or proof of qualities worth admiring. And the moment she forgets this, she becomes blind to subtle shifts. Blind to the slow erosion of boundaries. What begins as casual sharing, complaints about her day, disappointments in her marriage, secret dreams she's never voiced, slowly weaves intimacy where it doesn't belong. Ladies and gentlemen, the most dangerous affairs are not born in bedrooms. They are born in conversations. In laughter. In attention. In the quiet cracks of emotional starvation. And the haunting question is this: once the drift begins, how many notice it before it's too late?